Let's go on to this motion for a directed verdict. Of course, it happens every time the prosecution rests. The defense then asks for that judgment of acquittal. What they really focused on, let's go to Jason Lamm, was the felony murder theory. Because the underlying felony, and remember, this is charged in the alternative, first-degree premeditated murder, first-degree felony murder, and the underlying felony is burglary, the breaking and entering of a home with the intent to commit a felony therein. And the defense argument was Travis Alexander invited her into that home. She came into that home. He knew it. He welcomed her. The pictures show it all. And therefore, you cannot say that this is a felony murder situation. Prosecution countered that to saying in the midst of it all, she can be unwelcomed and there can be that underlying burglary. What does the case law say in Arizona?
Well, again, you're right, Jean. There's got to be that predicate felony. But in this instance, we're talking about a substantial evidence test. What that means is there some evidence from which a reasonable juror could find the defendant guilty of the charge? Now, the attorneys are arguing back and forth, and really what it comes down to is, was she remaining unlawfully in the home? And that's going to be an issue of fact. It's a close call here. It's a close call based on the case law because there are inferences that are being drawn by the prosecutor. If this was beyond a reasonable doubt, probably a different story. Substantial evidence, they would probably get over that hurdle, but it's not their best argument. If they're going to hang their hat on something, it should be the premeditation within first-degree murder.
But Jason Lamm, did the defense get anything out of this examination? Because she said Jodi is a gentle person. She's a loving person. She's a wonderful person. Does that help the defense right here?
I think this was a huge witness for the defense. When you're a prosecutor, your last witness to end your case, you want them to go off with a bang. And Leslie Udy, she went off with a big, fat thud. The last thing you heard out of her was that Jodi is a kind, gentle person. She couldn't imagine that Jodi would do such a thing. That's exactly what is going to open up the defense's theory. And then, on redirect, what did the prosecutor do? He jumped his own witness. He sandbagged her. He attacked her.
You know, Jason,
wow.
We want to
Burying
show
your teeth
everybody
at your
a
own
little
witness?
bit of this. Joey Jackson, we want to show everybody this. We were actually in commercial, and I told my producer, we've got to let everybody watch this because there was a redirect by the prosecutor really attacking his own witness. You say she's a friend of yours, that she's a gentle person. Everybody watch this. Listen, what do you think about this?
Don't mean to be indelicate. You said you knew her. You see that photograph?
Yep.
You know who that is?
It looks like Jodi.
Did you know anything about that?
No.
How about exhibit number 164? Who does that look like to you?
Looks like Jodi.
Know anything about that aspect of her life?
No.
Jason Lamm is joining us also live right here at the Maricopa County Courthouse. Jason, you practice law right here in Arizona. What do you think are some of the issues that could be part of this evidentiary hearing? Because there are some letters, and these also have been disavowed, but it doesn't mean the defense can't make another pitch to try to get them in. They're letters that Jodi Arias said that Travis Alexander wrote her, but Jodi doesn't have any original copies, but it would go toward Travis saying, you know, I hit you and things like that. Could they be making another try to get those in?
Absolutely. The defense case is really the trial of Travis Alexander. They will put his character on trial. They will put his sexual deviancy on trial. Will that translate, Jean, to a quantum leap towards domestic violence and that Jodi Arias was abused? We don't know. But those letters could be a key piece of the puzzle. And the reality is, issues come up during the trial. Trials are not linear in nature, and that's why breaks are always taken during trials. Sometimes to work through these issues, the court will do it on a Friday, which is normally the dark day here in Phoenix, or sometimes longer breaks need to be taken. But unquestionably, there will be a definitive ruling as to what the defense can and cannot get into based on new evidence presented at trial, and those letters could be a very key part of the puzzle.
Jason, what about the defense domestic violence expert? How far will he or she be able to go when they take the stand?
Well, it's going to depend on the examination that was already conducted. Are they going to be testifying as to behavioral traits that Jodi Arias is displaying? Beth is right. They can't get into her specific statements. But there's always wiggle room. There's a way to backdoor it in, and that's what the defense attorneys are going to try and do. There are always the rules, and they're the rules, because let's remember, she's on trial for her life, and there are gray areas in this arena, and that's what her attorneys are trying to do. And the more of her statements that they can get in through the experts, inadvertently, the more it's going to help that self-defense case.
And the more she may not then have to take the stand, Jason Lamm, correct?
Well, that's been the back and forth between us for weeks now. Obviously, you know, when Jodi Arias does get on the stand, that little bit of venom that you saw coming out of prosecutor Juan Martinez's mouth at the end with Leslie Udy, that's nothing. That's nothing compared to what he's going to open up on her if she gets up on that witness stand. So the defense attorneys are mindful that in order to make the case of self-defense, she's going to have to testify that she was in fear for her life. But if those experts can start chipping away at what those statements are, it's less that she's going to have to do on her own.
Jason Lamm, one of those phone calls lasted quite a few minutes. It was not voicemail, but it was actually Jodi Arias speaking into Travis Alexander's cell phone with a message. That came out with another witness, but let's listen to the voicemail that she made after she killed Travis.
Midnight. Anyway, right about the time you're starting to gear up. I know Leslie called you, so I already talked to her, so you can call her back if you want, but it's not necessary. My phone died, so I wasn't getting back to anybody. And what else? Oh, and I drove 100 miles in the wrong direction. Over 100 miles, thank you very much. So yeah, remember New Mexico? It was a lot like that. Only you weren't here to prevent me from going into the 3 digits. So fun. Tell you all about that later. Also, we were talking about, when we were talking about your upcoming travels my way, I was looking at the May calendar, so I'm all confused. But Heather and I are going to see Othello on July 1st, and we would love for you to accompany us. I don't know when Team Freedom's event is, though, but, you know, it's on the list, so we could do Shakespeare, Crater Lake, and the coast. So if you can make it. If not, we'll just do the coast in Crater Lake. But let me know, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.
So that call right there is about 6 hours after she killed Travis, 11:38, and that is the first time we hear her voice at all since she killed Travis Alexander. You know, Jason Lamm, is this just a very calculated killer? Or with this voicemail message, could you argue that this is someone that has just disassociated herself with reality, that does not know what's going on right now? That doesn't really bode well for self-defense. You could maybe work it in there, but any way you can go that direction?
I think what the prosecution is trying to do, and what they've done throughout its case, is to try and show that Jodi Arias was setting up her own alibi in leaving these voicemails, which, come on, she knew that someone was going to hear them, and she wanted it to sound like nothing was wrong, she had no idea. And then seeing Ryan Burns up in Utah, putting herself in the company of someone else who can give her an alibi. What she had hoped to do is create witnesses who could testify to her whereabouts. Of course, she forgot about that camera that she left behind, giving the police the time of death that they wouldn't have otherwise had. But instead, she created a very meticulous trail of exactly where she was, and has created witnesses that can testify as to her demeanor, which is completely contradictory to self-defense. Now, a defense expert will have to say that, yes, she dissociated herself, she completely shut down, but then again, you've got to balance that out with a lie. So what she thought was being real crafty and shifty and the perfect crime is going to come back and bite her if she takes the stand.